These keys. The same keys you've held for 20 years. The teeth worn smooth at the bottom edge from 1,000 turns in the same lock. The plastic fob faded from sun and pocket lint. 20 years of the same door. 20 years of the same 5-step climb up the same staircase. While your income quadrupled. While everyone you graduated with bought a house, sold a house, bought a bigger house. Moved to the suburb with the better schools. Moved back. Moved out again. 20 years. You stayed. And there is a number sitting in your account because of it. Today, we walk through that number. And then we walk through the honest version of the math, including the parts that argue against you. Year 1. The apartment was supposed to be temporary. Nobody picks an apartment to stay in for 20 years. You picked it because it was the cheapest, decent one within commuting distance of the job you took right out of school. 850 square feet. 1 bedroom, no closet doors, a kitchen that's really a hallway with appliances. The rent was $1,200 a month. Your take-home was about $4,000. The rent was 30% of your income, which the BLS Consumer Expenditure Survey will tell you is roughly the historical average for renters in a low-cost metro. You signed the lease. The landlord wished you luck. He probably thought he'd see you for 2 years, maybe 3. Most renters in this country move within 36 months. The numbers there come from the BLS again. Median rental tenure in the United States is somewhere between 2 and 3 years for adults under 40. You were planning to be one of those numbers. You weren't. Year 5. Your income has moved. You're at about $5,500 take-home now. Promotion, raise, slightly more responsibility. Rent went to $1,350. Modest increases. The landlord likes you. He hasn't tried to push the rent the way he pushes new tenants. This is the first year somebody you went to school with asks the question. You're at a wedding. The friend lives in a starter home an hour outside the city. She has a yard. She has a mortgage. She asks where you live now. You tell her. There's a pause. She says, "You're still in that place?" And there's no judgment in it, exactly. But there's something. The implication is that staying is a kind of failure to launch. What does she think you're doing wrong? Probably nothing specific, just not following the visible script that says you upgrade housing roughly every 5 years until you peak in your 40s. 20 years from now, you'll remember that pause. You won't be able to remember what she was wearing. You'll remember the pause. Work it backward, and you'll see that this is the year the script started running. You didn't subscribe to it. You ignored it. That was the actual decision. I've watched enough people walk through year 5 over the last decade to tell you something about it. Year 5 has a specific weight to it, and it has nothing to do with the rent number. The rent stays manageable. The thing that weighs is a silent re-narration that arrives in the apartment when you come home from someone else's housewarming. You come home from the wedding. You sit in the apartment that used to feel right-sized and now suddenly feels small. The walls didn't move. The ceilings are the same height. What changed is a comparison point that didn't exist when you signed the lease. That comparison point arrives, on average, somewhere between year 3 and year 6. Most people respond by moving within 12 months of the comparison arriving. You don't. The $8,500 you'd otherwise spend on closing costs, moving, new furniture, and the first 6 months of upgraded rent stays in the account. That money compounds for the next 15 years. Year 10. Halfway. Your take-home has moved again. You're at $8,000 a month now. About $100,000 a year in your hand. The rent is at $1,600. The math has gotten quietly absurd. Your housing cost as a percentage of take-home is now 20%. Roll that number forward 20 years, and you'll see the curve widening instead of bending. Most of your peers at this same income level are paying somewhere between 30 and 38% of their take-home on housing, and by now, they've upgraded twice. The mortgage on a single family in a decent neighborhood, plus property tax, plus insurance, plus maintenance, runs them somewhere around $3,300. You pay $1,600. The difference shows up in one place: the brokerage account you've been auto-transferring into since year 3. Year 10, the account has somewhere around $80,000 in it. Most of your peers at the same age and salary have negative equity in their houses, if you count closing costs and the down payment as something they could have invested somewhere else. I want to slow down on this number for a second. $80,000 at year 10 doesn't sound like much next to the $420,000 that's coming at year 20. The temptation in year 10 is to feel like the math isn't working, that you've sacrificed the bigger apartment, the dinner parties, the home office, and the payoff is a modest brokerage balance. I've seen people break the discipline at exactly this point, right around year 10. They look at the number, decide it's not enough, conclude the strategy is broken, and finally pull the trigger on the upgrade their friends made 5 years earlier. They miss the curve by the smallest possible margin. The number that sits in your account at year 10 serves as the foundation, not the payoff. The next 10 years are where the curve does its actual work. There is a man who lives in the apartment across the courtyard from you. You don't really know him. He's been there longer than you have, 12 years already when you moved in. By year 10, he's been there 22 years. He's about 55 now, wears the same jacket every winter, drives the same Toyota. He works in something city-employed, water department maybe, or building inspections. You see him every Saturday morning, carrying a single paper bag of groceries up the stairs. Same store, same time, same bag. Through the gauze curtain in his kitchen window, you can sometimes see him eating dinner at a table that looks like it came from his parents' house. Last year, his daughter got married. The wedding was at a venue downtown, 250 people. He paid for the whole thing in cash. You only found out because you bumped into him in the elevator with a tuxedo bag, and he mentioned it, and you happened to know the venue. Look at this moment, right now. He's been doing what you've been doing for 2 decades longer. The man across the courtyard is what year 40 looks like, if you don't break the discipline. One step back. If you've made it this far in the breakdown, I already know something about you. You're playing the long game. Most channels in this lane talk to people about how to get to the upgrade. This channel talks to people about whether the upgrade was the point. Subscribing here works like a quiet marker. You're in the same room as the channel. Not loud, just present. Same way the man across the courtyard is present. Year 15. This is the loudest year. Your take-home is at about $12,000. The rent is at $1,950. Housing is 16% of take-home now, historically low for someone at your income. This is the year 3 things happen at once. Your sister buys a 4-bedroom in the suburb with the good school district. Your closest friend at work closes on a townhouse in the city. Your mother starts mentioning, in a particular tone, that you've been there a long time. The script is getting loud. The script wants you to do something. The script wants an event, an address change, a photograph of keys to a new place posted somewhere. You don't post anything. You also don't move. You also don't argue about it at family dinners. You just continue. The auto transfer keeps firing on the 1st of the month. The brokerage account now has somewhere around $240,000 in it. You don't tell anyone the number. Ask yourself honestly, would you have wanted to tell anyone? Would the number have changed what you said at the dinner? Probably yes. Probably both. What I find interesting about year 15, watching this from outside, is that the people who eventually break the discipline almost never break it at year 5 or year 10. They break it at 15. The pressure is loudest then, because it's the year the gap between you and the visible script becomes impossible to ignore. Your peers have houses, your siblings have houses. The cultural script has moved on without you. Most who quit here. They take the brokerage account that they've spent 15 years building. They use it as a down payment on a house they didn't need before they thought about it. They tell themselves the equity will compound. The equity does compound, just along a slower path than the brokerage account was on. By year 20, they have an asset on paper and not much else. The discipline they survived for 15 years got converted into drywall and a school district in one transaction. Is that a wrong choice? Not necessarily. But it's a choice. The breakdown only works if you make it consciously rather than by attrition. Year 20, the current day. You're standing at the door, the keys are in your hand, the lock is the same lock. The brass plate around it has darkened from being touched by the same hand for 2 decades. Your take-home is at $16,000 a month now, about $192,000 a year, 4 times what you made in year 1. The rent is $2,200. Housing is about 14% of take-home, historically very low. The brokerage account that's been quietly fed for 20 years sits at somewhere just over $420,000. That's the number that makes the difference between you and the average of your graduating class. Not because you out-earned them. By most measures, they out-earned you. The number is the difference between writing one check to a landlord every month that didn't grow with your income and writing the upgrade scripts checks, bigger mortgage, then bigger mortgage, then property tax that escalates with the assessment, then maintenance that doesn't show up on the budget until it does. I'd make that trade. $420,000 in the account and an apartment that knows me, against a bigger house and an empty brokerage account. That's an easy one for me. Your trade might be different. That's the point of doing the math instead of running the script. Here's where we have to be honest, and the honest part is the most important part of the video. The number isn't a complete picture. There's an obvious alternative missing from the math. What if you'd bought a house instead? What if, instead of paying a landlord for 20 years, you'd been building equity? The naive math says owning beats renting. The actual math is messier. Robert Shiller, who built the most used historical index of U.S. house prices, has documented the long-run real return on residential real estate at something close to 1% above inflation. Stocks, over the same long horizons, average roughly 6 to 7% above inflation. The gap is not small. Most of what people call house equity was actually leverage benefit. The loan magnified a modest underlying return into something that felt large. I think this is the single most underdiscussed piece of personal finance math in the United States. The honest accounting on the alternative path looks something like this. Suppose you'd bought a starter house in year 3 for $280,000. 20% down, $56,000. Mortgage on the rest. 20 years of paying mortgage, plus property tax, plus insurance, plus maintenance, then realtor fees on the eventual sale, then capital gains math. The honest delta between the rent path and the buy path in most metros ends up somewhere between $0 and $150,000 in favor of the buy path, sometimes negative for the buy path in metros where appreciation lagged. The $420,000 number in your account survives the comparison. It would just have been smaller, probably closer to $270,000 in real net wealth, accounting for tied-up equity. Still substantial. Still more than the median peer who upgraded twice. So, what's the actual takeaway here? Not renting beats buying. Both are housing vehicles with different trade-offs. What matters is the staying. Whichever housing you stay in, the discipline of not upgrading every 5 to 7 years is what keeps the delta from getting eaten by upgrade cycles. The keys you're holding could have been keys to a house you bought in year 3. Same disciplines, slightly different numbers. Similar result. There's something else missing from the math that's worth acknowledging: the space. 20 years in 850 square feet means there were things you didn't host. Dinners with 12 people, the Christmas where the whole family came, a real home office instead of the kitchen table, a guest room, a second bathroom on a sick week. These were not zero costs. You paid them. You just paid them in inconvenience and a slightly smaller life, not in dollars. The $420,000 is real. So is what you spent to get it. Some people will read that math and say it wasn't worth it. Some people will read that math and say it was. Both can be right, depending on what you actually value and what life stage you're in. Growing families generally cannot do this. Solo people and child-free couples sometimes can. I want to be clear about what this breakdown is and isn't. This is description, not recommendation. The upgrade script makes its own path invisible. Every wedding, every house photo on Instagram, every "you're still in that place" at a family dinner reinforces one trajectory. This video tries to make the alternative path equally visible. From there, each person decides on their own terms. Ask yourself honestly, was the upgrade you almost made the upgrade you wanted, or the upgrade you owed someone else? That's a question only you can answer. The $420,000 account doesn't answer it. The account just sits there, doing what it does, regardless of what you decide. The keys turn in the lock. The same lock, same 5-step climb. The door closes behind you. The apartment looks the same as it has for 20 years. A few new objects, mostly the same. There is a number in a brokerage account somewhere, and there is a quietness in the room where the upgrade event photos didn't get posted. And there is an old jacket on the same hook by the same door. The lock turned the same way it turned 20 years ago. Tomorrow, it will turn the same way. What is the upgrade you didn't make? The one nobody noticed you didn't make? Find it. Write it down. We'll come back to it.